Hello, Kris here, Doom Telly time, episode 80. 80, can you believe? 80 episodes. And today's episode is 1994. But before we do all that, let's get on to my regular updates. It's just the band updates this week as well. There are no missed fucking entries to my competition. I would like to think that sorry saga is at an end. But anyway, so band updates. CROWSBLOOD, no rehearsal this week. That's my fault. Tracy's away, so I'm babysitting. So I can't make the CROWSBLOOD. I've offered to make this up to both Aki and Lee for my shoddy performance. So no further updates on CROWSBLOOD. GODTHRYMM, no further updates on that. Like I say, we're going to be rehearsing soon, probably before Crimbo at some point, and get the new writing stuff underway and fully finalised. We will have some announcements on some gigs coming soon, but like I say, we're still dotting the I's, crossing the T's on that, so a week or two off yet, or maybe 3 or 4. Anyway, whatever, there'll be an announcement soonish on GODTHRYMM gigs, so watch this space. Green Sabre, final rehearsals in the bank, a week, well, Saturday the 7th, anyway, whatever it is. I'm trying to think whenever you're watching this, but you could watch this at any time. Saturday the 7th of December, 2024, Night Train, Bradford, supporting God to Hellfire. Hamish will be, thankfully, supporting us on the night, adding second guitar to Green Sabre. Cannot wait, it's going to be magnificent. £5 on door, Night Train, Bradford, 7th of December. Get yourselves there. Can't wait for it. It's going to be magnificent. So those are the band updates. So let's crack on. 1994, a year in metal. And just to fill this in, you will all know this by now. I'm doing a decade's worth of top sixes, also rans, glaring omissions. I started in 1987. I've done 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93. 94 this week. I'll be going up and doing and including 1997, so hopefully I'll get these in before the end of the year, but let's wait and see. I've got to do my yearly roundup on the band front. That's a video I need to do. I've got to do my album of the year video, of course, which I might do in the next couple of weeks. I don't know if there might be something else coming, but anyway, regardless, so I've got to squeeze in those 2 videos before I crack on with these. So anyway, speaking of cracking on, let's just fucking stop waffling. So 1994, what was I up to? Well, I was in the band Desolate at the time. And I did my first gig. Well, first and only gig with Desolate. That was the night that I met Hamish for the first time. He was playing in the band CST, and I borrowed his guitar for the evening because mine snapped a string, and it had one of those fucking annoying Floyd Rose tremolo systems, and because the string snapped, the tremolo fucking sank into the bottom, and it was a right saga. I didn't have a backup guitar, so Hamish very, very kindly, much like he's going to be doing on the 7th of December, stepped into the breach and assisted. Fantastic. Yeah, my first, there's a flyer from said poster that I'm going to insert. There's no year on it, but I'm almost certain it's 94, September 94. It has to have been, really, because I don't think we were anywhere near gigging with Desolate in September 93. In fact, I'm not entirely sure we'd even recorded it at that point. But anyway, so yeah, that's what I was up to in 1994. I moved to Leeds not long after that. I lived with a load of students for about a year. I did move back to Morecambe in 1995, and then, yeah. So I come back to Leeds eventually, of course. But yeah, so that's what I were up to in 94. But what was the metal world up to in 1994? We'll just have to wait and see. As I alluded to in the previous video, in 1993's video, I said that sort of extreme metal was having a bit of a drop-off at this point. Death metal certainly was. Thrash metal certainly was. Doom metal, yes and no. But ultimately, black metal, as you will see, was not. In fact, that was on an upwards fucking trajectory. Now, we're talking about second wave, the Norwegian stuff, the second wave of black metal, which, although there were a first wave where you can count bands like Bathory, and I would argue Show No Mercy has got elements, Slayer's Show No Mercy's got elements of first wave black metal to it. Certainly Endless Pain, creator's debut. That's got elements of black metal to it. Venom, if you want. Oh, I think they were more of a Nwabam band for me personally. But anyway, yeah, that first wave of black metal. The second wave, which I'm going to get into in this 1994 countdown, was very much a different animal. There isn't much similarity. In fact, I'd say the best example of first wave black metal that sounds remotely like the stuff that moved on to was Bathory's, is it the third album? Under the Sign of the Black Mark is the album that I'm thinking of anyway. I want to say that's the third, or is it the fourth? Anyway, whichever one it is. That's the one that, for me, was most influential with... But anyway, I'm fucking going off on a tangent again, as per usual. 1994. So, as per usual with these videos, I'm doing a top 6. I'm doing an also rans that didn't quite make it. And I'm doing a glaring omissions that I feel didn't deserve to make it. So anyway, that's how I'm doing it. So let's get on with it. I'm coming in at my number 6. And like I say, in a lot of these, if you'd asked me in that year, this might have even been number 1 back then. But it's still worthy enough to make top 6. It is Corrosion of Conformity's, I lose track what album it is, but anyway, it's their 1994 one, Deliverance. This probably still is a masterpiece, quite honestly. I can still put it on. Like I alluded to in the whichever year Blind, the previous video, is in. I think I like Blind just as much as I like this, to be honest. Although back then in 94, this I felt was comfortably better. There's a lot of southern stoner rock to it. Pepper Keenan is now the main vocalist. But there are so many good tracks on it. I mean, Albatross, that everyone will know. Clean My Wounds, Broken Man, the track Deliverance, the track Shelter, the lovely little sort of slide guitar acoustic-y, almost country vibe to it in places. Fabulous little tune. But there's some absolute monsters on this. I like some of the incidental little connector tracks, little instrumental pieces. Just magnificent. It's a great album. Like I say, it just slips down the ranking because there is other stuff from this year that I now value higher than this. But I don't think there's any denying that this was a massively influential record because of what it created. That whole... I suppose there was more Pantera influence, if so to speak, as such. Like, it was that whole southern metal vibe that came into the equation from your I Hate Gods and people like that, and of course Crowbar were going at this point as well, and yeah, and it's still magnificent though, and that is why it's a worthy number 6 for me. But number 6 is what it is. Number 5, did I get this in the right order? No. Number 5 is this. Cradle of Filth's debut album, The Principle of Evil Made Flesh. I'd love this on vinyl, but until they repress it, it's not going to happen. Daft money for original, certainly. There are a few reissues, but they're pretty crazy money as well. But anyway, enough about reissue costs and vinyl costs. This was a bit of a light bulb moment for me. Now, I often mention another album that will be getting a mention later on in this video, but I mention another album as being the catalyst for me understanding black metal finally. But I often forget this, and this is the one that I heard first. Now, this isn't strictly a black metal album. There is plenty of black metal on it, but there's goth metal on it as well, and there are elements of death metal, and there's slight elements of a sort of doominess to it as well. But, I mean, it is 60% black metal, I would say. And this was the catalyst. It's this album that made me think, hey, I might be able to get into that black metal stuff, you know, after all, because as I've mentioned previously, I wasn't an enormous fan at first. When I first heard Dark Throne and Burzum and the Mayhem album, I didn't get it. I was like, what the fuck? What is appealing about this? It just sounded like a noise to me, and does still to a lot of people. But I understood it, and it was albums like this that helped me understand it. I was lucky enough to catch a few of these songs live recently when Cradle headlined Damnation. But some of my favourites just off the bat, the title track, The Principle of Evil Made Flesh. Then there's The Forest Whispers My Name, that's a cracker. Black Goddess Rises. Crescendo of Passion Bleeding, that's a great one. To Eve the Art of Witchcraft, to Mist and Midnight Skies. it's fantastic. It's a great, great album, and I won't be told otherwise. Yeah, Cradle of Filth morphed into a very different thing, but certainly the first 2 or 3 albums are well worth a listen, but this is comfortably standout their best thing they've ever done for me personally, which is why it's a worthy number 5. I almost had it higher, and then I felt that the album that's coming in at number 4 couldn't possibly sit behind this, really. So anyway, I'll explain, but that's why Cradle of Filth's Principle of Evil Made Flesh is my number 5 for 1994. My number 4 for 1994 is this, as mentioned just before, Dark Throne, and their fourth Soul Side, Blaze, Funeral Moon, yeah, fourth. Anyway, it was the third of the kind of black metal trilogy, really. Let's not forget Panzerfaust, though. That's a fucking monster of an album. But anyway, we're not talking about that now. We're talking about this, Transylvanian Hunger. Magnificent record. Again, as mentioned previously, did not like it at all at first. In fact, I don't think I even listened to this when it came out in 1994. I'd heard Blaze, Funeral Moon, and thought, no, that's enough of that. Yeah, like I say, it was later in 94, early 95, where the penny finally fucking dropped with some black metal stuff. This wasn't one of them at the time, funnily enough. I think I came back to this 95, 96, something like that. And it was later on that this dropped as such, like, after having got into the other stuff, thanks to Cradle of Filth and someone else that I will mention shortly. But this is a masterpiece. I don't think there's any other way of describing it. It is just frantic, evil, lo-fi majesty. It's just fantastic. It's got everything. It's got a great cover, fantastic songs on it, and don't really need to say much more. Anyone that's into black metal knows this album like the back of their hand anyway. It's fucking fantastic and a worthy number 4. And as you can see, there is becoming a bit of a black metal theme with 1994. Because like I say, on 93, I said that metal was having a bit of a dip, which it was largely, but black metal was taking off. Now, I've not got my number, where is it? Come out, you bastard. There it is. I've not got these in order because I'm useless. But anyway, so yeah, that's my number 4, Dark Throne's Transylvanian Hunger. My number 3, bit of a side swerve here with this one. And I know there's a few of you out there that will despise this choice, but I love it and I still love this album. And it takes me back to 94. This is the kind of thing I was listening to in 94, which hence why black metal was a hard sell. It is Soundgarden's Super Unknown. It's between this and Bad Motorfinger that are their finest hours for me. But I adore this record. This was a CD that was given to me as a gift by a really, really good mate. So shout out. It has stayed with me. This is still the original copy that I got as well. And it's just great. Like I say, it takes me back to 94. But I love so much about it. I'm a fan of Soundgarden anyway. I think they were great what they did. I love Kim Thile, or Thile, however you pronounce it, the guitarist. I think he's a magnificent guitar player. And of course, Chris Cornell. But this album kind of had everything. It's got your Soundgarden staples as such, but it's also got some incredibly heavy, doomy moments on it. I mean, Let Me Drown's a great way to open it. Then My Wave. Then the one that everyone knows, Fell on Black Days, which is great. You've got Mailman, which is the kind of, I think the bass player might sing that one. Anyway, the title track, Super Unknown. Head Down, that's a cracker. Black Hole Sun, Spoon Man, Limo Wreck. It's side B where it starts getting really, really interesting for me, this album. You've got Limo Wreck, The Day I Tried to Live, which is a fantastic song. Kickstand, a bit more up-tempo. 4th of July. I fucking love that song. It is just a cracker, really, really doomy, sludgy, Melvins-esque riff to it. Great vocal pattern on it. It is a magnificent tune. And the standout on the album for me, 4th of July. You've got Like Suicide as well. It's another cracker. She Likes Surprises. There are some fucking beauties on it. And this is a worthy number 3 for me for 1994. Like I say, if you'd asked me in 94, it might have been Corrosion's Deliverance that came up top. but it would have been very, very close to this. Would have been a toss-up between these two. So yeah, my number 3, Soundgarden's Super Unknown. Getting to the nitty-gritty now. My number 2, and I'm going to try and keep this under, it's not going to be under 20 minutes, but I'm going to try and keep it under 25. My number 2, Burzum's Visitatos, and I've spoken volumes about this on some fairly recent videos, so I'm not going to go into an enormous amount of detail on it. But again, as mentioned before, made zero impact on me in 1994. It is since that I've come back and understood the majesty of it. And if I had to choose, this might be my favourite Burzum. It's very, very close between this and a Philosophy. But they're so close. But this might just edge it. I think the only reason for that is the rather rambling atmospheric piece that finishes Philosophy. There's a lot of atmosphere on here, but I think it captures a bit more of the black metal majesty that Burzum became notorious for. So, yeah, enough. I mean, absolutely cracking album cover. There's your front. This is a reissue just on black vinyl. There's your back. Fantastic. I mean, you can get absolutely perfect artwork for this record. I can get lost in it. I think it is a masterpiece. I mean, regardless of what you think about I'm a friend Varg. Not for me to mention here. I just want to say that this album's fucking great and a worthy number 2. And could have been number 1 were it not for, personally, the finest black metal release of all time coming out in the same year. And again, as mentioned with Cradle, that gave me the realisation that I could get into this. And it was this album that made me think, yeah, I am more than into this. It's a masterpiece. I love this record. Emperors, I think you knew I was going to show this. Emperors in the Nightside Eclipse. This is a reissue, but I will show it because it's on some sort of snazzy vinyl. So avert your eyes, Roger, because it's on snazzy coloured vinyl. Look at that, more atmosphere. Look at that beauty. That's the other side of it. But yeah, what do they call that? Merge, swirl, fucking some sort of nonsense. This is the 2022 or 2023 reissue, I want to say. Comes with a poster. And yeah, anyway, regardless of this fucking press of it, I love this record. I love it. From start to finish, it's just brilliant. And I think there's symphonic elements of it as well, which probably made it more of a kind of an easier gateway for people like myself back then. There's some classic death metal style riffage on here as well, but there's some pure black metal brilliance. And just some of my favourite tracks, just to name a few of them. Towards the Pantheon, I Am the Black Wizards, Inota Satana, Burning Shadow of Silence. Well, all of it, quite frankly. It's all fucking ace. You've got the intro. What's the intro? I can barely fucking read the back of this. What's the intro? Oh, The Infinity of Thoughts. It's just ace. It's magnificent. It's a masterpiece and a worthy number 1. Like I say, back in 1994, if you've asked me, this wouldn't have made my top 6. It might have just crept in because, like I say, it was either back end of 94 or very early 95 that I discovered this. And it opened up a world of, like I say, Cradle was my first discovery. And then, yeah, I opened up into the other stuff. So that's my number 1 for 1994. Also Rans. Let's talk about Also Rans. Very, very close because this is the last great album by these guys. Danzig 4. This is my original digipack, which is a weird fucking shape and doesn't quite fit in the fucking... with all the other 6. It's like not deep enough and too tall. It's like perfectly square. Anyway... fucking pain in the ass, but what can you do? Danzig 4, brilliant album. Like I say, last great one from Danzig. And the change is coming. There's the track Can't Speak, which is fucking cracking. But you can hear there's a difference in style coming out of it. I mean, you've got some staples. Brand New God's a great way to open it. Little Whip, Going Down to Die, Until You Call on the Dark. They're all kind of Danzig staples and that classic first lineup era, and comfortably the best, the only Danzig era worth mentioning, let's be honest about it. But it's the track that closes it, Let It Be Captured, which is my favourite on this album. I think it's fucking cool, just great. And a great album, and didn't quite make my top 6, but it was mighty close. Also, what was mighty close was what is my favourite Cannibal Corpse album, The Bleeding. And you'll have noticed a lot more CDs arriving here. As I mentioned in the 93 video, it was 1993 where I stopped buying vinyl and went CD, and everything really from that point was 90% of it at least was bought on CD as opposed to vinyl. I've not got all those CDs anymore, sadly. But anyway, Cannibal Corpse is The Bleeding. Was this the last album that Chris Barnes did with them, or did he do another? Anyway, I think they've found their niche on this. There's technical brilliance on here. The songs are great, though. You can feel them building into it. Eaten Back to Life, the debut, is very, very rough and ready, and a bit daft, quite frankly. And there's still elements of daftness on Butchered at Birth that never really quite... It's a bit of a mess of an album for me, is that. There's some great moments on it, but there's also lots of filler. Tomb of the Mutilated is the one where... Well, the one with Hammer Smash Face on it, of course. It's the one where all of a sudden you start sitting up and thinking, these guys are getting it together now. Yeah, this works. But I think they really get it together on this. It's the best album for me, anyway. So, shout out, but not quite, for Cannibal Corpse's The Bleeding. Shout out, but not quite, for Pantera's whatever album it is. Is it their third album, or is it their fifth album? Let's call it the fifth. But Far Beyond Driven, obviously, I was a child of Vulgar Display of Power, and I still have a soft spot for that record, even if it might not have aged amazingly well. I feel like this might have aged slightly better because it's just a little bit more in your face about it. There are almost some sort of death metal style riffage on here as well. Almost, I hasten to add. But some really, really strong songs on here. There is a bit of filler, I have to say. But there are, I mean, Strength Beyond Strength is a great way of opening it. Becoming 5 Minutes Alone, I'm Broken. That's a pretty fucking stellar opening for salvo from there. Then you've got Good Friends and a Bottle of Pills, which kind of drops off slightly, a bit of a daft kind of monologue-y type song. Hard Lines and Sunken Cheeks brings it back up. You've got Slaughtered on here, but then I think you've got like 25 Years, Shedding Skin, Use My Third Arm, Throws of Rejection. It's a really nice cover of Planet Caravan at the end of it. It's not a patch on the original, but it's a worthy attempt. But yeah, honourable mention, but not quite, Pantera's Far Beyond Driven. Honourable mention for this as well, Slayer's Divine Intervention. This is the weird sort of box set, so you have to sort of... the album that came after Seasons. And this, again, I feel like there is a little bit of filler on here. It's the first album that Slayer did, arguably, that isn't great from start to finish, personally. Although there'll be people that tell you that they think it is great from start to finish. Certainly the first album that Dave Lombardo's not on. You've got Paul Bostoff on drums on this one. But there's some magnificent stuff on here. And I saw him on this tour in what was then the Town and Country in Leeds. It's now become the O2 Academy. Saw them with another band that I'm going to mention in a bit. But yeah, Slayer's Divine Intervention, worthy mention. Right, those are the ones that I've got physical of. And caveat, I will no doubt have forgotten someone's favourite album ever, so my apologies. I forget something on everyone. I didn't dig it out. I've got it back there. Jar of Flies. It's only an EP, so it shouldn't technically count. But when I was talking about Dirt on the 92 album by Alice in Chains, I mentioned that I got it dead cheap from HMV. I didn't. I bought that repress from Crash Records in Leeds. I lied to you. It was the Jar of Flies fucking... I might as well dig it out on there. It's not too far away. Who's that? Anthrax. Where are we? There it is. I can see it. I can see it. It's this one that I got from HMV on cheap. I think I picked it up for, like I say, about fucking 18 quid or something. Daft Pop. Right, I'll have that. And it's got Sap on B-side of it as well. It's the double. But yeah, worthy mention for that. Great album / EP. So that's probably why it doesn't count. Image inserted because I don't have a physical of it anywhere, although I'm sure I had it on CD at some point. Bolt Throwers, Fourth Crusade. Brilliant, brilliant album. I'm very, very close to top 6, but not quite. Napalm Death's Fear. I've not written it down right. It's called Fear, Emptiness and Despair, is it? Anyway, Fear. Yeah, whatever it is. I think it is Fear, Emptiness and Despair. I've just written Fear down. I'm sure it's not called that. So, yeah, worthy mention for that. Decent, but it was never threatening top 6, I'll be honest with you. Testament, image inserted. Low. I like this because it's the James Murphy album. I'm right in thinking that this is the album that James Murphy plays guitar in it. So that's why it has a soft spot for me, because I like pretty much everything that James Murphy soft spot. And segue, I forgot to mention Disincarnate in the 93 video. That would have got an honourable mention and very, very close to a top 6. The Dreams of the Carrying Kind, James Murphy's side project, Disincarnate. Fantastic album. I think they only did that one, didn't they? But it was magnificent. Not for here, though, because we're on about 94. But just to mention that, yes, I forgot that on 93. Acid Bath, the Kite String Pops, or whatever the fuck it's called. Image inserted anyway. I don't mind this record. It's not the fucking holy fucking trinity that a lot of people talk about it like it is for me. It's a really good southern stoner metal sludgy album. It is very, very good. So an honourable mention, but that's about it. It wasn't threatening my top 6. Helmet, never threatening my top 6. I always found this band a bit overrated. Betty, I think, is the image that I'm about to insert anyway. It's all right. It's got some moments, but I never quite understood the Helmet hype that a lot of my friends were doing at the time. Speaking of Melvins and sludge, Melvins' album Stoner Witch, decent album, not my favourite of theirs, decent album. There's slightly rockier feel to the songs on this album, but decent nonetheless, so an honourable mention. An honourable mention to this, Caius, Welcome to Sky Valley. This will be in a lot of people's top 6. Was never going to threaten my top 6 because I never have liked the vocals for Caius. I like the music, but I just do not like your man's vocal style at all. I, shock horror, feel that Queens of the Stone Age were and are an infinitely better band than Caius ever were. So shoot me down later. But honourable mention to it because it's got some half-decent tracks on it, but I just can't abide his voice. So, yeah. I will have no doubt forgotten something crucially important off, but that will do for now. So let's get on to my glaring omission. And I have got this on CD, but I've just never bothered digging it out because I don't really listen to it anymore either. But my glaring omission for 1994 is, image inserted, Burn My Eyes by Machine Head. Now in 1994, this would have been in my top 6. I loved it. It was a bit of a game changer for me. It was heavy as fuck. It had a groove to it. But I suppose it is what has become new metal, and I've mentioned on a lot of other videos what is new metal and what was new metal. As very, very few bands, if maybe 1 or 2 maximum, have had any longevity from that scene. The rest of it just seems dated and a little tragic and sort of embarrassing for me in places. And I'm not going to quite aim that at this album because this is Machine Head's finest hour. Of that, there's no doubt. And there are some great songs on here. Davidian is a fucking great tune. It is. And the one that follows it, is it Old? That's all right as such. I think there's a bit of filler on the record though, but it's the only Machine Head that I really can listen to, quite frankly. I know that I've just been talking about Burzum, and you shouldn't let your opinion of someone cloud your opinion of their artistic merits as such. Like, I don't let that the fact that Varg is a fucking arsehole affect my opinion of loving Burzum albums. The fact that Rob Flynn is an arsehole for differing reasons to Varg, I somehow do let it affect. I think it's because it's more all-encompassing to what Machine Head stand for. Does that make any sense at all? When I look back on Machine Head, all of it is Rob Flynn posturing and playing this fucking agnostic front wannabe fucking hard man in a new metal band with the fucking braided hair look and the Reservoir Dogs t-shirt and the blah blah and so on. And I just find him intolerable, and it does, for some reason, it knocks into his music for me, and I find that intolerable because of him, because it's a lot of posturing. I think I love the 2 main Biohazard albums, Urban Discipline and fucking whatever the other one was called. Is it Tales from the Hard Side? No, that's one of the tracks on it. Anyway, whatever that one's fucking called. I like them as albums, but I can't help but let that fucking macho posturing nonsense affect my enjoyment of that. In fact, 94, should Biohazard have been mentioned in here as well? They wouldn't have made me top 6 anyway, but Biohazard probably need a mention. But anyway, I'm going off topic again. I just find that this ultimately, Burn My Eyes hasn't aged particularly well for me. There are some stellar tunes on it still, and as I say, Machine Head's finest hour. But that's really it. I think it gets talked up a lot more than it deserves. I don't think it's aged particularly well, and I don't think Machine Head really did anything else of any other fucking merit whatsoever. So that is why Machine Head's Burn My Eyes is in my glaring omission. Right, that'll do. So enough of this nonsense. It was my... Oh, by the way, just one other thing on Machine Head. It was them. They were support to Slayer that night that I saw them at the Town and Country / O2 Academy in Leeds. And I was dead excited to see Machine Head that night. And they were fucking magnificent live, I have to say. I've seen them twice live, actually. Saw them support to Metallica in 2008 in Los Angeles at the... Inglewood Forum, when Metallica were on the Death Magnetic tour. Me and Tracy were on holiday in America and noticed, shit, there's a gig on, let's get tickets. So we went to see, I think Sword opened, Machine Head next. We missed Sword because we were late getting to the venue. Caught 4 or 5 songs of Machine Head and then caught all the Metallica, of course. But anyway, another story. I've digressed again. But yeah, Machine Head were really good that night in 1994 in Leeds. Slayer were better though, but yeah, that was what I was going to mention. So let's wrap it up. I've still gone over half an hour. Fucking useless. So let's call it a day. Next week's video might be my year in roundup for the bands, because of course I'll also be sort of saying how the gig went on the Saturday 7th at Night Train in Bradford. £5 at door. Hamish is playing second guitar for us. But yeah, so I'll probably do my retrospective in year and a little review of that gig, and then pick up the year 1995 the week after. But you'll just have to wait and see. Until then, thanks for watching, thanks for liking, thanks for subscribing. Take care, and I'll see you when I do. Cheery bye.